In this podcast episode, Mark Norman talks about the issue of representation in mainstream media and the pressure to adhere to certain narratives. Norman delves into the topic of diversity and optics in the entertainment industry. He discusses the tendency to prioritize optics over authenticity, leading to the casting of individuals based on their appearance rather than their talent. Norman gives examples of comedians who do not fit the stereotypical image of their ethnicity, but are still expected to conform to certain standards. Norman discusses the concept of propaganda in Hollywood and how certain narratives are ingrained in the entertainment industry. He mentions the practice of black actors being required to wear a dress in movies as a rite of passage, highlighting the underlying issues of representation and stereotypes in the industry. He questions the authenticity of these narratives and the impact they have on actors of color. Norman talks about the recent appearance of comedian Shane Gillis on SNL and how it has sparked discussions about cancel culture in comedy. He mentions that while SNL initially fired Gillis for controversial remarks, they later invited him back, showing the flip-flopping nature of cancel culture. He also highlights the role of comedy in addressing sensitive topics and pushing boundaries, even if it may lead to backlash. He discusses people's tendency to make snap judgments based on limited information and the importance of seeing the best in people. Norman shares that while he is cautious about the content he puts out, he believes in the freedom of expression for comedians. He discusses the case of a comedian who faced backlash for a George Floyd joke and the consequences of pushing boundaries in comedy. He emphasizes the importance of allowing room for comedians to make mistakes and learn from them without facing severe consequences. Norman shares his personal struggles with people-pleasing and discomfort in pushing back against others. He acknowledges the challenges of being disagreeable and confrontational, especially in comedy and personal interactions. He discusses the biological and psychological effects of social exclusion and outcasting, emphasizing the toll it can take on individuals' mental health and well-being. The conversation shifts to a study on dating norms among Gen Z individuals, which found that men still predominantly pay for dates, with women rarely contributing. Norman reflects on the traditional expectations placed on men to pay for dates, regardless of their views on gender roles. He points out the hypocrisy in advocating for equality while upholding traditional gender norms in certain situations. The conversation delves into the impact of life circumstances on genetics, citing a study on pregnant women entering poverty during pregnancy. The study found genetic changes in the children of these women, highlighting the long-term effects of stress and trauma on genetic makeup. Norman reflects on the interconnectedness of generations through genetic inheritance and the profound impact of stress on individuals' health and well-being. The conversation shifts towards the changing definition of masculinity and societal expectations. Norman discusses the concept of baby girl vibe and how men embracing traditionally feminine traits are being perceived as sweet, charming, and in touch with their emotions. He mentions the shift in masculinity towards qualities like honesty, respect, protectiveness, and emotional expression. He acknowledges the evolving nature of masculinity and the importance of being open and vulnerable in relationships. Norman shares an interesting historical anecdote about Ernest Shackleton, a British explorer who led an expedition across the Antarctic. He reads out a job advert by Shackleton seeking men for a hazardous journey, emphasizing the low wages, bitter cold, and uncertain return. The conversation delves into the adventurous spirit of individuals in the past and the willingness to embark on challenging expeditions despite the risks involved. The discussion highlights the contrast between the adventurous mindset of previous generations and the comfort-seeking tendencies of modern society. The discussion shifts to a study linking poor sleep quality to an increased use of self-defeating humor and profanity. The study suggests that individuals experiencing sleep problems may use humor and curse words as a coping mechanism to counteract feelings of tiredness. The conversation delves into the psychological impact of sleep quality on language use and the ways in which individuals adapt their communication based on their physical state. The conversation explores a study that found a link between repeating the F word and increased pain tolerance during an ice water experiment. The researchers discovered that swearing can strengthen pain tolerance, with participants experiencing less discomfort when using curse words. The discussion highlights the psychological effects of swearing on pain perception and the potential benefits of using profanity as a coping mechanism. The conversation shifts to the topic of technology and addiction, specifically focusing on smartphone use. Norman discusses the compulsive behavior associated with constantly checking phones and the dopamine-driven reward system that fuels this behavior. He reflects on the challenges of balancing the benefits and drawbacks of technology in modern society, acknowledging the addictive nature of smartphones and the need for self-regulation. Norman opens up about his experiences with gambling and the potential dangers of developing a gambling addiction. He shares anecdotes about betting on various events, highlighting the thrill and risk involved in gambling activities. The conversation touches on the psychological aspects of addiction, including cravings and compulsions, and the importance of recognizing and addressing addictive behaviors.